Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Abby. I'm on the team here at PocketSuite as an account executive. I am joined by my colleague Rocco, as well as Sylvia, who is a dog training business owner and is here to help elevate the conversation a little bit, as well as one of our founders and CEO, Chinwe. We are looking forward to chatting about from first booking to forever client, how kind of that first interaction with the customer as far as an intake form and your intake process actually sets the trajectory for your entire relationship with the pet parent and of course the pet as well. So again, I'm Abby. Thank you so much for joining. I am a dog trainer by trade, crazy dog lady. We do all the sports and fun things with my boykins, and I've also worked in pet care software for 4 years now, so I'm very familiar and enjoy helping pet businesses streamline what can be streamlined, right? All the admin, all of the busy work, so that we can get back to doing what we love most, which is working with dogs. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to let my colleague come on. His name is Rocco, and he will introduce himself.
Found the mute button. Hello, I am Rocco. I am the person at PocketSuite who helps you figure out how to put together all the things that you need to do and put it into practice in real life for your business. I've onboarded hundreds of pet pros on to the platform, and I used to be a middle school teacher. So I'm told that I have a lot of patience and have patience for the journey of learning, your learning, figuring out how to implement new software. So happy to join.
Thanks so much. So, a little bit of background about us for those that might not be familiar with PocketSuite. We are built for service-based businesses, and pet care pros have been at the core of that since we launched in 2014. We've served over 1,000 pet businesses, which means a lot of the insights that we do share are grounded in real data from these businesses that we serve. We are an engine that kind of helps your client interact with you from end to end, right? So we do scheduling, even online booking, so lead management, truly from that origin of the customer, all the way through the operations of managing your kennels, occupancy, invoicing, contracts, vaccines, all the ops goodness is right there in the middle. Then, of course, again, invoicing, subscription payments, packages, billing, right tied up in a bow with a QuickBooks integration. So truly it does serve the customer from again start of that lead to finish when you've completed the transaction, taken payment, and we automatically send it off to QuickBooks for you. So again, just kind of an end-to-end service-based business solution. So here's what we're going to go over today. We are going to chat again about intake forms specifically and why it's kind of an underutilized tool and what is so special and important about it. We're going to discuss 2 jobs every intake form should do, what pet pros across the industry are doing in their forms, and how that shapes the client journey. We're going to give you some opportunities of what is can be powered by that intake process, how PocketSuite can automate it, of course. And then we're going to give you an action plan to take away from this webinar so that you can actually put this into practice pretty immediately at your business. So, we recently wrapped up the 2026 Pet Boarding, Daycare, and Resort Industry Benchmarking Report. And so we surveyed pet business owners, almost 500 of them, and found the different operators that are building the strongest businesses. And we tried to parse apart the data to see what common themes we could find so that everyone can be successful. And one of the things that we found and what we're going to discuss today is they know so much about their client before that client even walks through the front door. And that's truly integral to what we do. We are in such a high trust and emotional industry, right? People trust us with their babies. And so being able to provide that high level of service where we already know what to expect from them and they know what to expect from us is truly key to building that customer loyalty. And so here's some data down here, again, of just repeat customer revenue. So on the right-hand side, these are yearly revenues, right? So we've got businesses making less than 150,000 a year, between 150 to 500,000 a year, 500 to a million, and then 1 million plus. So those are our data groups. And then we can actually see repeat customer revenue share here. So those that are doing the highest volume per year are relying very heavily on these customers that are repeating and coming back. And this actually speaks directly to our intake processes. So again, we're just going to dive into some of this data so that you can understand why this is so important, and then we can talk best practices. So we see 54% of all businesses polled report that 75% or more of their monthly revenue actually comes from repeat clients. Um, as a dog trainer myself, who especially trained full time during the thick of COVID, this is kind of crazy to me because back then it was so, train the dog, get the next one, train a dog, get the next one. Everybody had dogs to train. And so this is something we're actually starting to see trainers really pivot towards, is building that repeat clientele. Whereas again, back in the COVID days, not super necessary. Everybody seemed to be getting a dog and it needed trained. So among the builders, which are doing 500,000 a year to a million, 63% of them report that 75% or more of their revenue comes from repeat clients. So we're actually seeing, and then 72% of those million plus are seeing add-ons. And so as the revenue, the business size and the revenue for the business increases, we're seeing increased adoption of these practices like add-on experiences and repeat clientele. We're seeing an increase in that with the business size. So only 7% of those $1 million plus businesses experienced a revenue decline last year, too, which is worth noting because they've built these businesses that are thriving. And so again, we're pulling out this data to see what some of their best practices are. So one of those things that we've pulled out is intake forms, right? So making sure you know your client before they walk through the door so that you can provide the highest level of customer service and experience. So most pet businesses treat this just like a compliance tool, right? Vaccines, emergency contact, but you're leaving value on the table if that's all you're looking for. If you're just looking for compliance, you're leaving a lot to be desired. They do two things that most forms do not. The first, personalized care. This benefits your staff because it keeps them safe, and it benefits the pet because it keeps them safe. So the right intake questions protect the animal, staff. They signal to the pet parent that you guys have systems and practices and policies in place as well. Questions about temperament, behavior, medical history, medications, feeding schedules, allergies, things like this. It gives your team context and they can deliver the best care possible. I love giving treats. I love loving on dogs, even though I'm a dog trainer. I really am such a softie. And so I don't want to accidentally give a dog a treat that they may be allergic to, right? That's kind of the biggest fear. And so by having this information surface directly on that intake form, it signals to the pet parent that these people care. They have policies and procedures in place to protect my pet. And again, it can drive policies and procedures to protect the pets. Job two, it can actually surface natural upsell opportunities as well. So there's a 54-point gap in this survey at add-on attach rates between top tier and then early stage operators. So these newer businesses are starting to find out about this and then they're growing. And so the issue is rarely that add-ons are not available. It's just how is your system presenting that to the customer? And is it in a way that makes sense to that specific client? I'll give you a great example. Those that are really into dogs will appreciate. I have Boykin Spaniels. They are the most energetic, hyperactive animals I've ever met. And so it would be super if when I'm putting in my form, yeah, my dog is super friendly, he's really sweet, but by the way, super energetic, he's crazy. If then I was met with, hey, do you want us to take Scout for an extra fetch time? Do you want him to do puzzles while he's in his kennel? My answer is always going to be yes, 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 and yes. So it's less about nickeling and diming the client, right? We don't want to get in that business. It's presenting the client with the opportunity to curate their pet's experience based off of their pet's unique needs. And that's how a lot of folks see it. That's certainly how I see it as well. So again, down here we have an example of a question about a dog's grooming history. If I had a super high maintenance coated breed, I could tack on a grooming while my dog's already there. Two birds, one stone. So again, the core of this and what most folks are already doing is the compliance stuff, vaccines and health. But it serves as retention foundation, right? It's once you capture those vaccines, that's a huge hurdle for the customer that's already been overcome. It makes it easier for them to come back next time because their vaccines are already on file with you. And it's beginning of a health history within your system, which is, of course, extremely professional to the client. They see that you care about the dog's health and medical history. And again, questions beyond vaccines, any medical conditions, chronic issues, medications, supplements. Give us your veterinary contact information. Any recent health changes since your last visit. So, what our data shows is that 60% of businesses grew revenue year over year, and the ones with the highest repeat revenue are the ones with the most systems in place for these communication practices. We can look here on the right for an example from PocketSuite, how we help with this. So the client can upload vaccination records, medical history, you can send out marketing or smart campaigns, and you can trigger icons. A great thing within PocketSuite is our icon feature is extremely automated. And so you're able to have the system flag you automatically if a client fills in a medical issue or if the client fills in a behavioral issue. It's not as manual as we see in some other platforms where you physically have to go in and tag a dog as aggressive, although you certainly could. Again, it's all about that automation so that things are not being missed. All right, intake opportunity two. Again, a lot of us are already doing this. Temperament screening that protects and positions, right? So, first and foremost, we want to protect our brand, our facility, and our clients. But also, it positions that when used strategically, you can use other upsells. Maybe a dog isn't the best fit for daycare. Rather than failing them and sending them on their way, maybe we can come up with an upsell option that makes the customer feel valued and like their dog is not being banished from daycare, and that they're, receiving value in a service that's the most fine-tuned for their pet. A lot of trainers do this as well. They'll do an initial evaluation, screening, ask questions, and then offer a personalized program. All right. And feel free to drop any questions in the chat as well. We'll be getting to those as well. So we actually have a direct quote here from Georgette and of positive training. Since we do not take aggression cases, my website intake form asks all about the dog's immediate needs. I screen all potential clients personally to ensure my employees and I are safe. Obviously, that is top and most important. The level of intention accomplishes multiple things at once, right? Again, it protects you, it protects the customer, but it also builds trust and creates a natural opening to recommend, again, modified care, like we were just talking about. So, again, a dog with separation anxiety is a natural candidate for an individual attention add on. Or my dog's super, super hyper. They need that additional stimulation and exercise. Um, Private boarding, private day train, as opposed to daycare for more, reactive or aggressive dogs. And then again, those high energy Boykins, for example, need structure, enrichment, all that fun stuff. Rocco, are you keeping an eye on the chat for me?
I am. Yep.
Thank you. Awesome. Yeah, if anybody has questions. All right, so this is kind of the meat and potatoes, right? Again, most of us are doing these compliance things about vaccines, temperament, but this is where the value really is for both the business and the pet parent. So again, there's a 54% add-on attach rate gap between top tier and early stage operators. And so it's less about the add-ons themselves and it's more about how they're being presented to the pet parent. It's not, again, the availability, it's just how it's being presented. So again, among those $1 million plus operators, 72% of those are seeing four out of every 10 bookings, four or more are adding add-ons. Um, and of course, among operators that are doing under 150K a year, that number is 18%. So we're seeing what these larger businesses are doing, and it's in a way that's pretty scalable for all of us. It's not feasible for every single business owner to go out and just build a ginormous building with a ton of top tier kennels. That's just not attainable for everyone. But I think it's reasonable that we could all add frozen Kongs, enrichment, nose work. We're seeing that being offered more and more, which I love. I would drive further to drop my dog at a facility where I know his brain is getting worked. So again, the upsell question built into every intake, questions that open these doors, right? So what grooming services does your dog currently receive? Where do you receive them? Has your dog had any formal training? What goals do you have? What does your dog do during baths? And this just helps you triage if these dogs are even able to be groomed. Uh, Groomers would not be very happy with us if we've just kept feeding them dogs that cannot be in a tub. Would you like photo or video updates during your dog's stay? I can't think of anyone that would answer no to that question. And then I love this question. Is your dog crate trained? Do they prefer more open or more structured sleeping arrangements? When I board my dog, I send him with a crate because that's where he's calm, confident, and happy. And then again, the point being, they don't feel like sales questions. Where it's not about draining every single dollar out of the customer. It's about adding appropriate value where it makes sense for them. So add-on rules for getting started. And again, we've got PocketSuite over here on the right where we can see our different add-ons and then some reporting surrounding this. If your current add-on attach rate is low, the first step, don't add more services. It's pick one, tweak your intake forms and your intake procedures, right? So that we can make sure that it surfaces to the right candidates. Train every team member to reference that answer at check-in. Oh, I saw you said that Scout is really high energy. For an extra $10 a day, we'll do snuffle mats and nose work with him. I would always say yes. Track the attach rates. That's the reporting here on the right-hand side. Track your attach rate for 30 days and see how it goes. Most facilities see meaningful movement on this within 2 weeks of implementing. So again, just speaking of how this is the foundation of the client journey. This is your first interaction with the customer. So its work does not end when the client submits it. It shapes every touch point that follows, and it really speaks to the customer if they know that you've taken the time to read it and review it, and you feel like you already know them before they walk into your facility. It just creates a very high trust environment, which is so critical to what we do. So just talking to some of the data here, how this carries forward. So post-stay follow-ups can reference specific details about the intake form. So there he is, Scout's on here. You can send, hey, pet parents that were tagged new puppy received a smart campaign. Oh, I see a question here. Yeah, Sylvia, you can feel free to come off mute.
Okay, and I just want to back up a little bit because I
Yeah.
don't want to miss the value of everything that you just built in the intake forms. So I think where I'm would love to see some clarity on actionable start touch points for businesses of like smaller scale, not just like more in the builder scale businesses when we're looking at these add-ons, my first question is, one, is this add-on only available if the client is booking it themselves from your booking link suite? Or do they see these add-ons when they're confirming a stay that you've maybe sent to them?
Good question. So we right now it's during the booking process, though we can set up what's called smart campaigns or essentially text message credits that can then follow up automatically on those reservations and surface at that point these add-on services. So, hey, I saw you booked boarding. By the way, did you know we offer X? And then that feels really personal because it's a text message.
Okay, great. Yeah, because I think for a lot of smaller businesses that aren't running facilities, because this feels very facility centered, like
Hmm.
myself, for instance, right, running something out of my home, I would love to be able to feature add-ons and have that as something that is increasing my revenue bottom line without me needing to go out of my way to create new services that I don't have an abundance of time for, right? Because I feel like businesses at my level a lot of times are stagnated simply because one, I don't want to move into a facility. So facility growth is not something that I'm looking forward to. And I've essentially maxed out where I can be price wise, bottom line on the things that I'm currently charging for. And I don't have time in my schedule to go beyond and add more services. So if I was able to add dogs onto services I'm already offering, like I have like a, enrichment program that I'm already offering once a week, if I could advertise that to my current boarders, hey, would you want your dog to join in on this? Hey, would you want your dog to come join in on one of our training hikes? I think that would be a great way to increase my revenue without increasing my time spent or the things that I'm offering. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I love that idea. Exactly. Not everyone has aspirations or can reasonably afford to expand their physical footprint of their facility to accommodate more dogs and more services. So I think that's where the add-ons do have a lot of value. I think a good first step for something like that is going back to kind of the point of the intake forms is you could also add a couple of questions just to get a read on what services would be interesting for your clients because you can then read the responses and kind of see, oh, I'm getting a lot of anxious dogs or a lot of energetic dogs. Okay. And then that will help you formulate so that you don't just have a ton of extra add-on services that may or may not build a lot of value for you as well as the client because you are doing so much already. And so I love, yeah, the idea of using marketing. You can set that up too with maybe where was Scout? Was it? He was in here a minute ago. I think I saw him. Nope, that's Bear. There. Icons are a newer feature in PocketSuite, and I think this is a good use case for this. So I spoke briefly earlier, we can do automatic icons for things like vaccine records or, hey, this dog has medical problems, but you can do manual icons as well. And so what we see on my dog's profile here, a little battery symbol, that's what I use for he's hyper. You could actually schedule smart campaigns based off of that so that you're reaching out to your customers who have reservations coming up that have hyper dogs. And then that goes out automatically and just says, hey, you know what? I see scouts coming in for boarding. Did you know I offer enrichment or does he want to join in on my pack walk? I think that would be a good use case there. And Rocco, feel free to chime in if you can think of anything as well. Certainly open to other ideas.
I was going to say exactly what you said. I think the icon, like an icon enabled smart campaign is exactly the way to go. In the past, before icons, which is a relatively new feature, you used to have to send the smart campaign to like everybody on this list who bought a certain thing. And that may not always be appropriate, right? Like it's great, but maybe I don't want to do every person. Now I can say, well, check that list of everybody who did training or everybody who did part one or whatever, and also check the list of icons and make sure that both of those things are true. And then we'll send the message to say, hey, you're in the appropriate category. We're going to ask you if you'd like to do these add-on services the next time that you come in or something like that. So, yeah, I'm just parroting what you said already.
No, but thank you. Sometimes it helps to hear it in a different way. And I think for a lot of trainers, and Sylvia, you'd appreciate this, of course, like we do deal with a lot of dogs that have quirks. That's kind of our job. And so it's helpful to that Pocket Suite can read both the reservation, meaning, oh, your dog's coming in for boarding or did boarding, and oh, they have this icon, which means, yeah, they could do a pack walk. They're not a dog. That way, it's not being offered to a dog that simply should not be on a pack walk for whatever reason. Is this where I was? I think this is the slide I was at too, actually. Um, and we actually, this is a really good segue, so thank you. Um, because a lot of the data carrying forward, again, those post-stay follow-ups, we can actually do that based off of additional, not just the service type or the stay, but also things like these icons, right? So that, again, those appropriate add-ons are being surfaced to the clients that actually qualify for them. Same with vaccine expiration alerts and upsell recommendations, like we just discussed. The other piece of this, and might not apply to the smaller businesses, but training your front desk staff, or training yourself to really take a peek at that form to then offer an applicable upsell. Again, something that doesn't feel gamey or like a cash grab. It's something that genuinely adds value to the pet's stay. So, oh, your dog's really hyper. We have all of these different enrichment activities. It's extra $20 a day for the enrichment package. I'm saying sign me up. So it captures the information for you. Your front desk team then takes the baton and runs with it as far as providing that value and that personalized experience to the customer. So training your team to work through these forms and kind of reading, okay, we've got our compliance boxes checked. How can we add value to this client and earn additional revenue per dog that's in our facility? So part one of this is a booking confirmation checklist. And like we kind of already just touched on this documentation and compliance, right? Most facilities are already doing this. So I'm not going to run through this slide with a super fine-toothed comb, but essentially, most facilities are already checking vaccine records, legal waivers and agreements, any compliance, right? And so we can see if an intake form is attached and not submitted, you can resend during the confirmation. That way, you're not waiting for it at check-in. You can confirm the contract, confirm a card on file. All of that can be done ahead of time. Add-on confirmation. So before confirming, we can review the intake answers and again, identify which add-ons are the strongest fit. And again, there's some automations we can do around that with using icons, which is a super fun feature. And then team members can also attach add-ons. So if someone calls to confirm, or if you want to call and confirm with the customer, the team member can also add those services. So you can actually track which add-ons are accepted at confirmation versus check-in to learn what your staff is doing and kind of track through that process. So again, communication standards. Every message should reference at least one intake specific detail. Again, that personalization and outstanding items. Hey, we noticed your rabies certificate is due for renewal as well. You can use the link below to upload or send me a picture. So every confirmation will obviously include arrival date and time, services, add-ons, and a clear next step if anything is outstanding.
I have a quick question, Abby.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just want to go back again to the one right before this. So the intake form. And I'll preface this question with saying I've been a PocketSuite user for a really long time now. I think like when it was first developed. So my question for users like myself who've been on the platform for a really long time, and you're talking about all these new features, which are really exciting and are going to change the way in which I'm interacting with the software. So my intake forms obviously were built like 2 or 3 years ago. Are they backwards compatible, or do you recommend, like, if you've been on the platform for a while, going through and refreshing some of those intake forms? Because, for instance, my first intake form didn't even allow file uploads. So I went through like that feature change. And so I noticed on your intake form example that you had posted screenshots of, you had actually had a place to upload each vaccine specifically, each record. In my experience, most of my clients' vaccines are just like one page with all of the vaccines listed. So for me, I don't know how necessary that would be for like a smaller enterprise like myself. I get why it makes sense on a larger facility scale. And also keeping track of those expiration dates. I have all of my forms because PocketSuite does have this really fun automatic setting where you can choose how often it goes out, which I did not know in the beginning. So it would just send my client the intake form every single time. They would be so annoyed because they'd be like, Sylvia, I already sent you my records last time the dogs were there last month. So, I have it just update every 6 months now, just because I figure within 6 months, probably something has changed to their
Yeah.
medical record. So on that long vein, would you recommend for a business like mine that's been on the platform for a while, and this might be a question more for Rocco, like, should we go back and redo our intake forms? And or are they backwards compatible and will still trigger some of these icon features?
I'm going to say it, if you're trying to be as thorough as possible, redoing it is probably the best way because you're going to be thinking about the types of like the form of questions that you are asking with icons in mind. So it's helpful actually to think about like to start thinking about those icons and those smart campaigns that you want. So what are the things that you are what am I going to do with this information? Knowing how you're going to set that part up probably changes the way you're going to ask the question. You can just heavily edit what already exists because it's not like the forms and the fields themselves have changed over time, but it does make sense to reword things. It does make sense in the example that you just gave to try to use like file uploads where you may not like that's a an older example, but there's probably plenty of people that do need to do that. And so yeah, if you're trying to be thorough, I think the short answer is just yes. But it's not like something is broken if you don't. It's just probably not maximized if you don't.
Okay, follow-up question. Has PocketSuite updated their template availability to have some of these newer forms if I wanted to just go in? Because when I started, I used the intake form template that existed back in 2023 when I started. So, and I've heavily edited that one at this point, and now, I can upload a file and something. Now it looks like you can upload more than one file. It used to just be one file per form. So, looking at that, is that a template in my time spent as a small business owner? Can I just go in and pick a new template that's got like the Bordetella upload file here already in existence in the back end?
Yeah, the fields have been updated probably in the time frame that you're talking about. So short answer to that is yes. And I would check that first before you do any heavy editing. Um, I think so we're crossing streams a little bit, and I don't want to get too into the weeds, but there are certain things that work better on a form, and there are certain things that work better as a field. And what the example that you just gave of the file uploads are definitely fields, and those have definitely been updated. So the defaults that we ask you to use do now say, yes, you should have this vaccine upload here. Yes, you can do two of them, right? And so that's not necessarily what you're going to find on a form. But the point is still the same, right? It's like, what kind of question are you asking? And the short answer to your question is yes, those defaults have been updated. So it is worth looking at that first.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. This is super helpful. Everyone is going to have questions, so this is super. I'm trying to.
You
Oh,
have
we
to
just went
keep
through
me
that.
from getting too nerdy and into the weeds. My apologies.
I love it because if one person has the question, everybody's going to have the question.
I do appreciate the clarity. So thank you.
Yeah. So, and that's actually helpful because we're moving from part one to part two. So, just running over check-in workflow and communication guidelines. So again, this is where I think some businesses have the ability to really train and trust their staff. Um, Check-in is the moment where this data really matters from the intake form, right? A well-trained front desk team is able to use the check-in, again, not just to check some compliance boxes, but to build trust and relationships with the customer so that they become recurring customers and of course add value for everyone involved. So talking about PocketSuite a little bit specifically here, the most effective intake systems are obviously not the ones that rely on staff remembering to ask questions, but the ones that capture information before the client arrives so that the staff can just simply review and make a recommendation. And so custom intake forms, of course, send automatically after the booking so that you don't have to manually follow up. Super helpful for these smaller solo businesses as well, again, that are really working with the dogs, hands-on, no dedicated front desk staff. This is huge. Again, vaccination and health record storage is going to be tied onto the client profile. Intake answers are visible and easy for the staff to reference. You can then take it a step further and assign some icons, whether they're, again, automatic or manual, based off of that feedback from the client on the form. And then you can flag specific care needs, which can then again be turned into a smart campaign, which is what we were discussing earlier, where you can actually tailor the automated outreach from PocketSuite based off of those icons, right? So all of my energetic dogs receive follow up about our enrichment add on services, and all of my anxious dogs receive follow up about my specialty hands on high touch boarding. So again, we can really kind of tailor it, which builds that customer loyalty. And we also do automated review requests. So again, taking it a step further of that customer loyalty, have them fantastic, personalized, curated experience. They're going to leave you a 5-star review. And that's so big. We know that that's where everybody shops for pet care facilities. And then last piece, run cards are surfacing basically all of this information, right? It's surfacing all of these important intake information to the customer or to the facility rather, and it's been printed for viewing. So wrapping it up because we love to give everyone an action plan and something to take away from all of this wealth of information is this is what's going to go in the next 30 days, what you're going to do at your business to audit your current intake process and then take it a step further to build value for everyone. So again, we recommend start making one simple change. Measure the build and the change from there. And this is something you can do within the next 30 days. So again, audit, look at your current intake form, questions, identify which questions are safety driven and which are experience driven because they're two different things that build a lot of loyalty and a lot of trust. Make sure you note any service specific questions that could open an upsell conversation. Again, in my mind, this is temperament. This is if you have a groomer or grooming services, then it's going to be grooming related. And if you're a trainer and you have training services, it's going to be training related. So flag any questions that are missing but would be useful for the team to know. And we can again do that during the audit. And then in the second week, add one temperament or health question. These are questions that drive high trust. So, one piece of information that your team most often has to ask at check in. Let's see if we can get that ahead of time. Week 3, add one upsell trigger question. So, pick your highest margin add on service. Write one intake question that identifies the clients who are natural candidates for it. So again, if you offer enrichment services, it's your highest margin add-on service. We can write an intake question that pulls those clients, right? Again, my Boykins are a perfect example because they're so hyper. They need those enrichment services. And then train every team member to reference that answer at check-in. Oh, I see you put here that Scout is really high energy. For $20 a day, we'll do a whole enrichment package that includes blah, 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 blah. Or Scout is anxious. We do enrichment. Again, it's very temperament driven. And then week 4 is just measure and repeat. And that's where having a strong system in place like PocketSuite is so valuable because you're able to pull these metrics right away. And you can see, you can actually compare period over period. So you can compare these add-ons again, period over period to see if they're actually increasing just with this change in your intake system. So we'll close with a Q&A here. Please feel free to answer or add any questions into the chat. Certainly happy to answer them. On the left-hand side, you'll see a QR code to schedule a demo with me. If you have any questions about how PocketSuite works or how this might help your business, please don't hesitate to schedule some time with me. I'm happy to chat. And then on the right-hand side, we'll be hosting a roundtable next week where we just kind of discuss and compare notes. So it's going to be more of an open forum where folks can join and share their favorite add-on services, share how it's changed their business, how it's changed their revenue. And again, it's just more of a conversation and roundtable around this topic. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Again, any questions, please don't hesitate to drop them in the chat. Happy to answer. All right. I think that'll do it. Thank you so much for joining, Sylvia. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you asking questions too. That really helps. Um, and yeah, thanks everyone else for the engagement.
Nice work.
All right.
Well done. Well done. That's going to be a great recording to share with folks. I suspect we have a fair amount of folks who just sign up to get the recording. So
Yeah.
I think